Okay, one of the most important things you can do, and I'm gonna start every video like that apparently, is clean the blower. We see these a lot because we're tearing into it. This is built inside of an air handler. This is out of a train. It is filthy as can be. The blower side, this is what you look at when you look inside the furnace, inside the air handler. You see this. You got the mold all over this, big fuzzies all over the wiring. Inside the blower side, dust buildup on the blower housing itself, which this, once it gets bad, will block airflow into the motor and cause the motor itself to overheat. Plus, the really gross part is, I don't know how well it's showing up on there, but the gunk built up on the fan blades. A lot of it is because this was an air handler. The coil sits below it, so when it's pulling air through it, in the summertime especially, it's pulling moist air. So it just helps all this growth just build up and build up and build up. And every so often it just has to be cleaned off. Furnaces don't build up as bad, but they do still build. So cleaning this thing is a part of regular service. Not necessarily every year, but every few years. Should be at the very least looked over. So we're going to go into how to tear this thing apart to get that blower wheel out and get this thing cleaned out. Step one, obviously, remove this thing from the unit. And depending on how the wiring comes out, this one's designed to have two plugs. You can unplug this, take this out, and everything else stays inside the unit. So once we have it here, we'll go ahead and start getting it undressed. And to do that, there's stuff flying on me. Wiring can come out. These little pinch pins. I don't have needle nose on me. Take a pair of needle nose pliers. It's little A pins. You can clip them out, but don't do that. Do it the right way. That one, freeing up the rest of the electric. The capacitor. This will be a good time to test the capacitor, make sure it's still within spec. And for the sake of not losing things, actually I'm going to be scrubbing this thing, so I want this out so it's out of my way. Don't necessarily have to undo all the wiring from everything, but you want it as free as you can. And beyond that, this one, again, this should be done outside because it's gross. All this stuff falling off, you're gonna have to clean it off in the house if you do it that way. This one is basically your speed tap. That's your speed tap. So make a note of which one it's on. That's on B, and use needle nose to get that out. So now, for all intents, our motor. Actually, I can do it that way. That works on this, depending on how they're wired. Click U off, and just got to remember that black goes to black, yellow goes to the other side. Tink. And now motor's free electrically, and I just need to disconnect this assembly, which gotta take all the stuff apart because you can't get the electronics wet. You can't really get the motor wet, and it is going to make a wet, sloppy mess. So take this stuff off and get it out of the way. One, two, three, four. And she's free. Now this can come out, and the wiring can all get wiped down. You just take a clean rag or something, WD-40 contact cleaner, clean this wiring off to make it nice and shiny. But I'll get to that in a little bit. Now we have to finish getting the blower assembly out. Now, while the blower is attached, and I'm running through this quickly, but take some emery cloth and sand this shaft. Get it shiny, get it clean. If you have some WD-40, oil, something, put it on there to shine that thing up. That one doesn't look too terrible, and I'm trying to do this quickly because I got to go home. If I was on a job, I'd be taking my time. Loosen the locking pin. I'll take it all the way out just because I feel like it. And it slid in. Usually push it in first and then you can finish cleaning up whatever you have to off there. But it's free to go. So now that can sit off to the side. Turn it that way. Then we take out the mounting screws that hold the blower motor in. Not that one. No. And my battery's dead. Smooth. Hopefully I'll have just enough battery to pop this off. Or I could take it off with a wrench like a normal person. Slacking. Take the motor, stick your hands in, pop it up with your fingertips. And this one came out amazingly well. You can see, shaft's pretty clean, not rusted, but it is gummy and gooey and yucky. So for this, fortunately we're outside, but get upwind. Brush this stuff off as much as you can to start with. Brush all the dirt off, dust off. And that's really all you need to do to the blowers. Unless it's, you don't necessarily need to chemically clean the blower, because you're gonna wash all the grease out and then it's gonna fail, or you're gonna spray something in there and might short it out. Don't do that. But clean it off and then set this thing off to the side. And she's free to go. Now the rest of this assembly can all get wet, washed down, cleaned up. But to get the blower wheel out, you have to take the screws out. This thing is holding it in. And I might need to take these out anyway. I do need to take those out. Take a bunch of stuff off, take a picture of it, remember how it goes back together. Spin that over, pop that one off, that one off. Now we have our main assemblies out, and get the blower wheel out, and now we have it. As you can see up close, the blower is quite gross and otherwise disgusting, but all that buildup on the wheel, it all interrupts the airflow. These things are designed, it's like an airfoil on a wing. It's really why they're curved like that. They are just airfoils. And inside this cavity is also disgusting as can be. So now we're gonna get this thing cleaned. You need some type of solvent to get it clean. My personal favorite, which I found most effective, is this. It's called Dissolve. It's made for mini splits. Any type, almost any type of coil cleaner will work, because that's what you're looking for, is a coil cleaner, because this thing sits next to the coil. Stuff you could breathe is always a plus. So indoor coil cleaner is what I would use, and that seems to work the best for me. I usually split it about a 3-to-1, somewhere between 3-to-1 to 4-to-1 water, and soak this stuff, hose it out, and get it going. Okay, now we've got it taken over to where my hose bib is. Got my cleaner mixed up in a little sprayer, and then you just soak everything. Start with the blower, soak it down. Whatever cleaner you have, that'll work as effectively as it will. Soak this stuff in. Just let that stuff sit for a few minutes. While that's sitting, spray the rest of it down. And in all honesty, all this stuff came out of somebody's house, and it's just blowing all this germs and mold and everything right back through your house. But this is not atypical. This is honestly not atypical for an older air handler. They just get full of goo and have to get cleaned. Now, there are things you can do to prevent the growth. UV lights, keeping your filter clean, many other, a lot of small things, but no matter what, every so often this should be done. Again, especially if you have a heat pump. If you have a heat pump air handler, this is, I don't know how over often. Depends on the system, have to look at it to find out for sure. But that stuff can soak in. Get this goo off my hand. This one's pretty dirty, so I'm gonna agitate it some. Let's use a coil brush. Do you need to use a coil brush? Depends on how bad it is and whether or not stuff comes off. But this one's pretty substantial buildup, so I'm going to use a brush. And you know what? I'm going to do something to amuse me. I'm going to put a mat down so you can see what actually comes out of it. Okay, got some cardboard so you can see the goo coming out of this. This is how much is built up on these coils, or on the blower over here. Now there oftentimes is some corrosion on the blades that you're not going to get off. It's just flat out not going to come off, and the only way to do anything about that will be to replace the blower wheel itself. Now, is that necessary? This thing's getting dry. Whether or not it's necessary to replace the whole wheel, depends on how clean it is and how clean you can get it. If it's been compromised, I'll leave off. But this is just half the wheel. find this brush. So far the most effective in terms of getting in there and might have to do another how-to on difficult blower wheel removal. This one came off pretty easy. Sometimes they don't come off that easily, and you need to use different tools to get the thing off. Or sometimes this is just flat out tedious and there's no fun way to do it. But that pile of goo, and that's not including the chunks that are still attached or what's going to wash off once I start blasting this thing with a hose. But get off, thank you. This is the pile that came off of it. Big. That's kind of gross, but and there's still large chunks left on here that once I blast it with a hose should come out, and then we could get this thing as clean as we can. But that's that. Then we'll scrub down the housing. All right, that's that one. And whatever you gotta do to scrub this stuff down. And you can see the grossness coming out of it. Nobody ever said this was a glorious or glamorous job. A lot of this interior side will be stained up because it's been on there for a long time. So you can see a lot of it's coming off, but there will still be one this bad. There's still going to be some shadows on it, but you can see how most of it's coming right off without too much effort. Scrub. No glorious, not a glamorous job. Necessary, very necessary. Because all this goo that's coming out of here will be blowing through your ducts and blowing through when you're breathing that stuff, and that's worse. So, even shine. But yeah, no diggity. Scrub basically every inch of it you can. As it drips goo out. I don't fully know how close to perfect I feel like doing this. Good enough for a first scrub down. The blackness of all this stuff all over my hands, which is also gross. Should have worn gloves, but oh well. And also in the interest of, I don't care about that cardboard. Rinse my hands off. But pull the cardboard out just to show what the heck is actually coming out of this, which is nasty. Now I'm gonna trash this cardboard and hose this thing down proper. Conveniently, I have a dumpster right behind me. All right. We have a wheel and a thingy. Wheel and a housing. This is the slightly more fun part because you get to just blast it and clean it, and hopefully everything comes off. Try to shoot in some way that's not going to spray back at you, but all right, we'll set that fella over there to dry. Most of it. Probably about as close to good as new as this gonna get. This thing is from 2008, I think. I don't know, I just watched the serial number off, so we'll say 2008. Probably never been cleaned, so a good 10-year buildup inside there. Clean my brush off too. But I like that cleaner. It's non-toxic, non-corrosive. Now, yeah. the rest of the water out if you got a towel to wipe it down. But you can see inside, it's pretty well all gone. This stuff up here, no matter how much you scrub, it's not going to come off. Still got a little bit on the other side. Might as well do it. As I run my mouth, so now I gotta do it. The back side of this part is awkward to get to, depending on how you're holding it. But yeah, that's stained in there pretty good too. Scrub that down. Rinse this thing out. This really is why it's best to do this outside. But good enough. Now it's got to dry it off and reassemble it. And we're back to putting this thing together. Got it as dry as I'm going to get it because I'm in a hurry and don't feel like waiting for it to fully dry. So we have to reassemble it. The important part is this wheel has to go opposite wherever the motor is. They'll tell which way the motor goes. See the shadow marks of the mount. This goes on the opposite side of that. Now the trick, cheat, the right way to do it, however you want to look at it. Wherever this pin is, the grub nut locking thingy, put a mark on the inside of the blower wheel that says where that is. Also put a little WD-40 oil, something on the shaft of the motor, possibly in here. WD-40 this thing up so you don't really get corrosion inside of there. Start your little nut and drop it in there. Try to put it so that mark is facing up. It has nothing to do with performance. It all has to do with clocking the motor, how you set the thing in when you put it in place. Set it down, lock it about where it needs to go. Then close your housing up so that the motor will stay, or the wheel will stay inside the housing. Fold that around, put the shoe in, and it should line up wherever the witness marks are, where will be again. Two. Once that thing's closed up, the motor can't fall out, or the wheel can't fall out, so it does. Still don't want to be slamming some of my stuff around because it's rude, so don't do that. Alright, now you have that part done, so flip it so your motor is going to drop in and clock your motor, clock your wheel so that mark is facing up towards the top. Now the only reason that's relevant is when you put it in, it's going to line up with this flat, so you can hold the flat, spin your motor that way. Yeah, we'll go with that way, and drop your motor in. Drop it into the hole. Should relatively line up. That lines up. It's not fighting too hard. Then we'll take and mount our motor. And as you can see, even though these are bigger screws, it'll say screw them in by hand, but I am barely touching my trigger. It's a throttle, not a switch. Or that's something that drives me nuts. When I see people do that, don't understand. You can run a drill part throttle. All right, but it's another rant for another time. When is the time for that rant? I can sort of see the witness marks of where this thing goes, so I'm gonna stick this back on because it can. There's no direct, it must go back this way. It's not necessarily a specific order of when all this stuff goes back in. It's just a matter of however you took it apart, put it back together the same way. And probably coulda, woulda, shoulda. Don't know. All right, now your motor. You want, for one, this grub nut should line up directly on the flat. Clock it to where it is, thread it down by hand, back and forth. Your blower wheel should be right in the center. So a little bit of a gap on this side, a little bit of a gap on that side. Keep your gaps even, and screw that thing down till you take all the play out of it. And then it should sit right about in the middle. Take a wrench and cinch it on down. It doesn't have to be killed. There's a spider. Go away. And he's still alive. Yay! It's not going to kill anything. Alright. Give her a spin. Make sure she spins nice and free. It should. I didn't scrub this wiring because I don't feel like it. Reassemble the rest of everything else you took off, which was my wire, my control box. It should line up with something. There it goes. Take a drill. Pretty sure that was the wrong screw. So one came out of it, but there's one screw not like the rest of them. Makes me think this thing's been apart before. Screw you in. Screw you back in. Take everything you took out with zip ties. This one will go back in up there. If I didn't snip it because I was being lazy. This one tied to the wiring harness. You go to the motor. So you went to B. Because you were on B. I don't know if I had that thing clocked right or not. I did because I don't feel like changing it. Black to black. White to the other side. Dropped a couple of screws, so I'm gonna need to find those. I'll find those in a minute. Remount your capacitor right there. Tink tink. Yeah, remount your capacitor. Zip tie your wires back in place. Tighten everything up. Reassemble. Throw it back in the housing. In the air handler, and you're good to go. If you have any questions, give us a call. If not, good luck. Yeah, I can find my screws. All right.